Hi guys, thank you all for coming along. So we've called this meeting because strikes are starting to happen now. First day of strikes was yesterday, and we've invited student leaders such as you guys, which includes like our academic reps, faculty reps, PAL leaders, and people from our departmental societies. And we thought it'd be really important for you guys to know what's happening and know what to do in cases of like appeals and stuff like that. I'm trying to figure out. I don't think it's working. Okay. It's okay, no problem. Okay, so we're just going to go through several things with you today, including the results of the referendum, give you a little bit of a background, and talk to you guys about how you can take group action, because obviously these strikes are going to affect your learning and your learning outcomes, and maybe some departments might be affected more than others, but it's important for you guys to know this information and relay it down to like your peers. So now I'm going to be passing you through to Ben, who's going to talk to you a little bit more about the results.
Cool. Hi everyone, my name's Ben. I'm the Student Voice Coordinator in the SU, so that means I look after things all democracy, referendums, elections, campaigns, that kind of thing. And I've been asked to kind of go through some of the... Come on in, guys. That's all right. I've been asked to go through some of the referendum results with you and also some strike background stuff. So, context, we had a referendum in semester one about did we support the strikes in between November, at some point in November and early December, I think it was. And the result came back as, from students, yes, we will support the strikes. But the Board of Trustees, the SU's Board of Trustees, found it pertinent to put another referendum on this semester because we thought another 14 days of strikes may be a little bit different to the first 8 days of strikes in semester one. We thought the student opinion may have changed slightly, and clearly it did. There was a massive swing in students not supporting the strikes or not wanting the SU to support the strikes. So it was around 65% of students voted not to support the strikes out of 3,000 students who voted, and 920. So there was a massive increase in voting, as 500 more people voted in this referendum than semester one. That also found that less people support the strikes. So it looked like a lot of people changed their mind, but also a lot of new voters engaged and perhaps voiced their opinions about it. So following the referendum, that means there's a resolution that the SU stance from there forward is we don't support the strikes between the dates from yesterday, so the 20th of February to the 13th of March. And for example, if there was another set of strikes later this semester or next year, we'd run another referendum because we think it's important to give each round of strikes parity in terms of student opinion, because we think student opinion may change between strike to strike. In terms of background, so if you don't know a lot about the background behind why staff are striking or how it works and that kind of thing, UCU, or the University College Union, is a national union which represents a lot of teachers, lecturers, those kind of things in different institutions around the country. So that's not just universities, that's further education institutions, some prison education as well. But hundreds of universities or NFE institutions are affiliated with the UCU, and they run ballots to see if universities, or in this case universities, want to strike. So 74 universities now are joining the strike, and that's for over 2 different issues. So some support both issues, some just one, but most of them do support the 2 issues. One's around pensions, and what's the one around? Pay inequality, thank you. So there's quite a few issues, but what I recommend you to do is go onto the SU website, into the strikes page, and it puts in far more detail around the disputes that lecturers are striking around. But I will point out as well that lecturers strike when they take time off to strike. They don't get paid for that time, and they don't necessarily want to strike either, but it's around the conditions that they're fighting for better conditions, because that is a livelihood they picked to be academics and to teach students as well as research and that kind of thing. But they picked to strike mostly to try and improve their conditions, not just for themselves, but also for the future academics and people wanting to go into teaching at universities and that kind of thing. But I really recommend, if you want to know more about why strikers are striking at the moment, talk to them at picket lines, go on their website, go on our website. We've got reasons why lecturers may want to be striking. And it is over the same disputes. Semester 1, semester 2, the same disputes, so they're striking again about the same thing, because there's not been a national resolution around that. And also on our website as well, you can see how many of our lecturers here balloted to strike, so you can kind of give you an idea about numbers. It doesn't necessarily mean they definitely will strike, but it kind of shows you the levels of staff here who may be supporting the strikes.
But I'm passing back on to Rick here. But
All right.
Oh, right, because she got one.
Okay, so what does it mean for your lecturers to be striking? So this can mean different things. It might mean that you guys are affected in different ways. So while some lecturers might be out there on picket lines, they can also do something called action short of a strike, which is when they just stick to their 9-to-5 day and don't do anything that's kind of above and beyond their contract. So this might mean that it's more difficult for you guys to engage with your lecturers if you need help, for example, on your dissertation, or if when it comes to like supervision on projects and stuff like that. Or it might mean that it might become a little bit more difficult for you to meet with your personal tutor if they're the person that are striking. And walk out, basically, as it says from there, means when like all these striking staff collectively leave their place of work. So effectively, it's going to be harder to kind of get that contact with staff members. And this also might mean that, for example, when it comes to like assessment and feedback, because lecturers are striking, it might take longer for you to get your feedback. And it's important that you guys take notice of this and really kind of like report it if you can, or like so that we have an idea of like the scale that it's affecting students and how it's affecting your experience here, because we know it's a stressful thing to not be able to contact your lecturers if you're like in your final year or any other year of your study. So there's going to be 4 weeks the strike's going to be happening across a 4-week period, and each kind of week the number of days that the lecturers are going to be striking out gets more difficult. So for example, next week it might be easier for you to contact your lecturers on the Thursday or the Friday, and sometimes it's difficult to know when they're striking or if your lecturers are still on. Some lecturers might communicate that they're striking and others might not, so it's a bit of a tricky kind of period to be in. Are there any questions on kind of the dates or anything like that? Also, I just wanted to point something out. So if, for example, you need to speak to one of your lecturers or your personal tutor and they're not there, please do feel free to contact any other member of staff in your department, whether it's your director of studies or head of department, because maybe not in like all departments, like not all staff could be striking, so some staff might still be available to kind of help you out if you need that sort of thing. Okay, and this might be more kind of relevant to everybody in this room, and it's kind of like, how does this affect you, like student leaders doing what you do? So, for example, if you're running PAL sessions, or if you're, as a faculty rep, organizing like faculty forums, the engagement that you get from students might be like different to what the usual thing is, because it could mean that less students are like coming to campus because their lectures aren't on, so you might get like less engagement or more engagement, and this kind of like, if you feel comfortable running those sessions, please do so, but if you don't feel comfortable doing that, then that's also fine. We'd just encourage you to kind of do what you feel comfortable with, yeah, don't know what the next, okay, it says advice. So I'm just going to pass you to advice in terms of like what to do if you want to take kind of action against what's going on in strikes.
Cool, thank you. So I'm Naomi, I'm the Advice and Community Manager in the SU as well. I realise I've got a blue jumper on looking like I'm trying to be an officer today. I'm not an officer. And I have never had my voice like this. It's great. I'm just going to use this all the time. Yes, so I work in the Advice Centre in the SU. I don't know if any of you are aware of that. We have an advice and support service. How many people know about that service? Cool, most of you. That's good stuff. So what we kind of anticipate with this is that some of you may be coming to us, or some of your peers coming to us about how we can support you through how the strikes have personally impacted you. So we're going to talk a little bit first about mitigating that impact in the first instance, and then we're going to talk about the processes available to you if you do really feel like it's hugely impacted you. Bearing in mind there is going to be thousands of students impacted. So the university are very aware of that and are going to try and do as much as they can themselves to mitigate. Hence why the first action on there is about identifying with your departments what are if they're taking any mitigating action. Obviously that's kind of counterintuitive because the whole idea of the strike is impact, which is not ideal, but as kind of Ben said earlier, everyone, in terms of like those that are striking, there's an impact there on their wages and stuff like that. So it's not black and white, but there may be some things that departments can do to help. And that is totally dependent on individual departments and individual people who are striking. Some will let you know if they're not attending a lecture. They're not obliged to do that, so some may not, and that's all part and parcel of this process. But where possible, your department should be putting in alternate arrangements. I know have many of you received emails from your Director of Studies, kind of giving you a bit of a heads up about it and any kind of bits you can do. So I know some departments have sent out an email. I know Psychology has sent one out. So yeah, expect those hopefully, but again, they're not obliged to do so. Again, you're in charge of your own kind of studies to a degree, so up your research and your reading where you can. You've got your reading list, you've got access to Moodle, you've got all those bits, so do your own bit to mitigate. Check your emails. Just always check your emails, please. We love sending you emails, so please do check them. But also Moodle, because that is the two places where you'll get notifications. So if a lecturer is updating you on not attending, that's where they're going to let you know if they take that route. Keep a daily record. Now, this is a big one if you want to follow the processes I'm going to talk through in a bit, because basically you're going to need to evidence the impact. So the more evidence you've got, the better. So, however you want to do it, whether you're an Excel fiend like I am, or you're just going to keep scraps of paper, do document it, date, time, what that impact was. So did the lecturer not turn up? Have you not had a response to an email? Those kind of things are the kind of things that you want to be documenting. Again, ask for an extension, a really important one. Like, you can ask for extensions, and then, again, departments will try and do what they can. And again, I've noted, do that individually or as a group. So the more of you asking, the more powerful that request will be. There is all the support services here, so we're the independent one from the university ones, but you've got the wellbeing, you've got the counselling and mental health, you've got various activities that you can access just sort of generally, obviously, in your time here, but if you really feel this is like impacting you, go and see them and speak to them and just have an opportunity to be able to let that out. Even if that's just going for a dog walk or doing a cookery class, they've got all those little functions, which are really nice. And then keep your academic rep updated. I'll sort of come to that in a bit, but the SSLCs you can feed back into after the strike, as well as a way of kind of finding out what departments can do. Any questions on any of that, or any recommendations anyone else has had about mitigation? Okay, so here's the kind of different processes available to you. So let's say you do feel that it has impacted your student experience in your studies. Now, I know obviously you are, if there is strikes going on, you're going to feel that impact, but if you feel it's impacted you to the degree that it may affect your learning outcomes, these are the processes that are available. So we've got the complaint process first, and then we've kind of divided this up into what the process is, what it's for, when in the kind of academic year you can do it, and what are your potential outcomes. So it's kind of clear what are the best options for you. I think we are sending out these slides afterwards as well, by the way, guys, so you will have them. So a complaint is basically all about services. It's not necessarily about changing academic outcomes. So that's kind of a good way to see it. If you feel that the service that you're paying for has been impacted, then that's the complaint. But that's the least likely scenario to get you changes in your academic outcomes. So if you're not after changes to academic outcomes, unless it's something sort of separate from this, let's say later down the line, you're a disabled student whose disability access plan isn't being followed, you could do that and it would change your arrangements. That makes sense? But it's your kind of end outcomes that aren't going to be impacted. We've kind of showed you there that you've got individual and group options, and I've kind of noted the benefits and disadvantages. So in terms of these processes, this is on the next page, but it is all about presenting a really strong argument about the impact on you, because bearing in mind as well that there may be numerous students that want to apply for these processes, so you need to be able to really demonstrate the impact. Therefore, putting in a group complaint may not be the strongest route to take, because you're then going in with lots of people rather than showing the individual impact on you. However, if you feel that you want that solidarity in terms of you prefer to be in with a group rather than it being yourself, you can do that still. And the kind of thing with the group as well is ideally departments are providing alternate arrangements, so they're kind of already tackling the group experience. But yeah, so that's that. Again, the outcomes can be arrangements made to address the issues you're reporting and potential compensation. I would say that this university hasn't previously provided compensation for strikes, so that's a long shot, but who knows? Okay, so IMCs, individual mitigating circumstances, hopefully you've all heard of these. There is still some kind of like, people aren't ever really sure what they actually do, and I know Academic Registry are kind of developing the web pages a bit more to make that a bit clearer for you guys, so we get that. We get a bit confused sometimes. I shouldn't say that, but we do. We don't, we really know what we're doing. So professional. But basically, they're a way of telling the Board of Examiners what you're currently experiencing that's currently impacting that assessment. So you could have 5 exams in 1 week or something like that, and you may only apply for the IMC on one of those exams because something happened on that day, illness, or something happened in the family that impacted your ability to perform to the level you normally would on that exam. You need to apply for that no later than 3 days. In this context, it could be that the lack of access to the, I don't know, I'm giving an example, lack of access to one of your lecturers caused, stress, emotional stress, and you feel it impacted your performance in the assessment, and therefore you want that to be acknowledged with the Board of Examiners, therefore put in an IMC. The possible potential outcomes, so the big one with IMCs, is they won't change grades. That's a massive misconception. With students, they come along and think that they'll be able to get their grades changed. It's like almost unheard of. That isn't really what happens. What can happen is you'll get a resit without a cap, so it's like you're doing a first attempt. You might be able to progress to the next stage. Let's say you do IMCs in July. And maybe you've got a couple of exams that you failed, but they're not core modules. They're not ones that you have to pass to get into the next year. They may let you progress without having to resit, or you can trail them. So you take those exams into the next year. So let's say first to second, you take the first exams again in the second year, but still do the second one. And then finally, it can be then brought back up again at a classification level. So an IMC, that you put in your first or second year may still be considered right at the end of your study period to factor in what your overall classification will be. Is this all making sense? Yeah. Okay, so the appeals, it's quite similar to IMCs, but it's only done at the end of an academic outcome. So are you mostly undergrads in this room? Is everyone undergrads? Any? Yes, undergrads. Okay, so with you guys, end of outcome is after the second exam period, so the second assessment period, where your marks are all ratified by the Board of Examiners. So even though in the first one you get your marks, so you've just literally got your marks yesterday, right? They're actually not ratified until June, i.e. they're not kind of a stamp of approval, although they pretty much are. So you therefore can't appeal them until June, July. So the outcomes are kind of similar to what you get with the IMC, but the difference being you can only do this at the point of end of outcome. It's not to say during the assessment, if that makes sense. So you might not need to do an appeal if you've already done an IMC and that's been successful. Appeals may come into place where it's not been successful with your IMC, or you didn't put in an IMC because you didn't need to, but you're appealing a mark later down the line, something like that. But as you can see, the outcomes are kind of exactly the same, really. Does that make sense in terms of what those processes are? So you may want to use these processes in terms of strike, but you will need to demonstrate, so that record that you've got of the impact on you is where they come into play on these processes. So what you tend to do in these kind of forms, they're essentially forms that you need to fill in, is write a personal statement on the impact on you, and then you can attach evidence. So you can attach your kind of blog with any kind of photos or emails or whatever. But yeah, you really need to make a strong case, which we'll come to on the next slide. So our kind of recommendations are, going back to that other slide, is just to sort of self-mitigate as much as you can. You know, take that control and do whatever you can to do that. Assess the impact on you after the strikes. That's quite important because, again, they're going to want to see that full period of strikes. They don't, you know, just this week. It's not going to provide a strong enough argument for the impact. So wait until after the strikes, but be recording throughout. You've got your SSLCs, your staff student liaison committees. So I spoke with Academic Registry yesterday, and what they've done after every strike this year and back in 2018 is they audit the courses for impact. So they assess what the impact might be on students. They'll look at grades, they'll look at modules, and that may impact what is put in your assessment papers and things like that. So there is actions that will come out of those audits, irrespective of what you guys are doing anyway with your processes. The university will be looking at that and change that accordingly. So if you opt to complete any of those processes we just talked about, this is us just sort of saying here it is considered on a case by case, so do make your case as strong as possible. The university are going to try and find the best outcome. The idea here is to get you guys the classification you're after, and to keep you at this university as much as possible. It's not about kind of anything else. And just think about demonstrating a strong impact, not just on your learning outcomes, but your student experience overall. You know, what did it say in your prospectus, and what do you feel you've actually received? That's a good way of having a little look at what your barometer is. And then, so we are here for support. So we can literally talk you through those processes. So I realise we just kind of whistle-stop toured on those. There's 4 of us in the team, so you can come along to us, drop in, or email, or phone, whatever's easiest, book an appointment, and we'll sit down with you and talk about your circumstances, talk about the impact, and then talk you through what are the possible options, what's the best ones that could work for you. Again, they're not necessarily, you can't pick one or the other, you could be doing all of them, in effect. So you could put a complaint in and an IMC, and we can talk you through all that. Whatever documents you put together, we can then review. So you could send us your statement and your evidence, and we can go back through it with you and just put our recommendations on it, help strengthen it. And then, should you need to, it's probably unlikely in this scenario, but should you need to, we do go along to meetings with students where possible. So, if you had a meeting with your department that you'd requested or they'd requested, we can come along as your advisor to that as well.